Hello and welcome to this episode of Talking Trim. I'm Jonathan Skinner and today we are looking at the main interior trim panels and retrim kits for the Jaguar E Type fixed head coupe. That's a two-seater fixed head coupe. What I've done here is I've laid out two kits, a British Racing Green and a Matador Red kit. They showcase the parts that changed in between the Series 1s and Series 2 models. Now bear in mind on the two-seater fixed head you actually had a 3.8 Series 1, then you had a 4.2 litre Series 1, then you had the Series 1.5 and the Series 2. So generally speaking, and I will go over this in more depth, the red items are from a 3.8 litre Series 1 car, whereas the green items are from a Series 1.5 Series 2 car. So they did have some shared parts, but they also had a few parts that varied. What I've also done is laid out a couple of markers next to pieces. They'll look like these little gold ringlets here. That is to indicate parts that fall outside the scope of the main trim kits when it comes to our offerings. We supply them as optional extras. Now for a lot of these parts, the materials for recovering your originals are included within the trim kit, but the fully trimmed up replacement parts, i.e. replacing the need for you to actually recover your original parts, are sold as an optional extra. So I'll go over each piece like that individually, but just keep an eye out for these gold ringlets, and that's what they indicate. Right, so let's dive on in. This is for the main interior trim cabin panels and retrim kits. It doesn't include all items. I've tried to make it as logical as possible, but also I'm working on a restricted size of our CNC bed that I'm laid everything out on. So I guess the easiest way of looking at this is we are looking at the parts that kind of go around the surround sides of the car and then into the luggage area for the rear door section. There are a couple of caveats to that, but basically it doesn't include any of the dashboard area. Doesn't include any of the kind of flooring parts. That includes the carpet set, the felts obviously, the sort of rear luggage boot trunk area in terms of the main panels that are on the floor as such, and also doesn't include any of the hardura parts. So you've got the A-post footwell panels down in the kick panel area of the footwells, the under seats parts that obviously go roughly with the carpet set, nor the bits just behind the seat that kind of separate the main cabin from the rear luggage area. We refer to it as the rear cubby box. It's got that sort of hinged plywood panel on there. It doesn't include that either, but everything else is kind of included. And the headliner it doesn't include, but we are looking at the cant rails. So yeah, just bear that in mind. Right, let's dive on in. Now, as I say, the red kit is the sort of Series 1 3.8, whereas the green kit is the later kit, the sort of Series 1, Series 2. Starting at the front of the car, we have got the under-dash wiring harness cover. So this is the actual panel here. Now, obviously, it's got these gold bits next to it, so that is always sold in an optional extra, but this material here we supply as standard in our trim kit to recover your original, or obviously recover one of our new ones, or we can do the combination actually do it for you. So that's that part there. Now, going on to the sort of main door panel area. Red, obviously the 3.8s, greens, the later Series 1.5, Series 2s. Now, the door panels did change a bit. On the 3.8s, they had two different versions. You had the early 3.8, which this is not, which had a kink in this panel here, and this edge here was piped, but then they swapped that out and started putting a chrome edging down there, which became a lot more commonly seen. So this is the later 3.8 door panel, which then went into the Series 1 4.2 door panel there. You have this armrest here, which is the Series 1 style, which again we sell as an optional extra, either fully trimmed up as per that, ready to go into the car, or we can supply you just the hardware bits if you wanted to do it yourself. But this rectangle here is supplied as standard within the trim kit. for recovering your original ones there, so just bear that in mind. Same concept again for the door top cappings. Door top cappings we supply as standard in our trim kit, enough vinyl and foam to retrim your originals. However, for an extra cost, we can supply these as an optional extra, fully trimmed up, ready to go into the car, and that's how they sit there. So you have this flange on the bottom here, so it tucks nice and neatly underneath the door panel, creates a nice seamless finish. Obviously there'll be a chrome piece that goes along there when you fit that in your car. So they're the door tops. Then you have what we refer to as the door drain covers. So these are the bits that sit on the angle like that in the car. This is obviously tucked underneath the door panel. Sorry, it's hard to do it one-handed. There we are. So it sits like that in the car basically. Again, material enough to retrim your originals, always as standard in our trim kits, but again, for an optional extra, we can supply them on brand new metalworks, fully trimmed up, ready to go into your car like that. To show you the green set here, because obviously this is the later version, so the doors followed very similar concept to the style of the red ones that we had over here. However, the main obvious change is this cutaway here, and they had different versions. So the sort of Series 1 4.2s did not have a slot, as per this late 3.8, which went over into the 4.2s. Then the Series 1.5, that slot from front to back was about 25.5 centimeters, quite rare. And then the Series 2s, generally speaking, and some of the Series 1.5s, this slot was 28 centimeters, which is what this is here, which is ultimately the very common version of that. Now, we also sell these molded black plastics which sat behind them. We have different versions of those for the different slot sizes, unlike a lot of other suppliers out there which supply a generic one, which don't work quite as well. I've done a completely separate video for that, so do see the link in the bio for that. But yeah, worth checking that out, because it really does demonstrate why having the actual size is best to do. Again, these black recess panels are optional extras, so bear that in mind. Door armrests, they obviously changed on the Series 2 cars. Series 2, Series 3s had this molded plastic, which is available in a few colours, not many. The sort of obvious ones are black, biscuit, red, dark blue. They don't do a green, so we have retrimmed these with the top stitching going around like that. As you can see, all ready to go into the car. They come with the fixings. Now, the covers for retrimming your armrest, whether you choose to or not, is supplied as standard in the trim kit, but the fully trimmed up versions like this, which are ready to go into the car, are an optional extra as per those gold ringlets as described. Right, so I think that's it. Let's just have a quick look at the actual door panels themselves. Hardboard, Cotton in-house CNC. They have all of the relevant pilot holes. We do this big tail on the front edge, etc., intentionally, so that there is a slight overhang when they're trimmed in the car, so that when the door opens, all you see is the backing of the panel. It also helps protect from a bit of moisture as well. But yeah, it's all the fine details that we go to on these. Very nicely done. Good amount of tension as well. You do not want to have bubbles of material coming up underneath your panels. A lot of people think that trimming a panel is as simple as laying down some material, folding over the edges and stapling it. It's really not. A lot of people really struggle to get rid of any air gaps in these. These are extremely tightly trimmed. I'm going to do a blog handbook post on that element, as well as some accompanying videos to really showcase our work. But yeah, so they're the door panels. Now, let's just reference a few of these things in this book that I have here. So you can see clearly here, these are the door panels. These are the exact red ones, actually. It's got the little armrest there, hasn't got any slot areas, and it's got the door top capping, etc. there. So that kind of nicely showcases there. There you are. You've got the what we refer to as the drain covers. Some people call them striker panels. So that's that element there don't think we've got any later doors on show anywhere. Let's have a quick scan if you bear with me. Oh yeah, perfect, there we are. So the later fixed heads, you can see the slot size here. That's the moulded armrest, obviously that's moulded plastic. That is what's underneath this, but we've retrimmed ours so it matches all in colour there. So that's those bits and bobs. Right, now we've got the inner sill covers, sometimes referred to as rocker panels, I believe, over in the US. Correct me if I'm wrong. So these are pre-cut bits of material. They are subtly handed. We do a cutaway there for the cross member elements there, intentionally to make them a bit easier to fit into the car and line up. And they come as standard with the foam. So they're fairly straightforward parts. We're talking about this step here as you get into the car. Sorry, let me just readjust so you don't get the glare on it. It's this panel here that you step over to get into the car there. So they are as standard in the trim kits. Right, moving a bit further back now. Didn't have enough room, unfortunately, but these are the cant rails. Cant rails, you get 4 pieces of vinyl. Now the cant rails are these bits that kind of separate the main area of the car from the headliner, so they go all the way around the windscreen, top of the side, and then they come back and around. Yeah, so all the way around like that. You can see it going up there and round here like that. So that is the cant rail. Now the 2 main long pieces are those pieces that go round like that, and then you have 2 shorter pieces which cover this area here. So that is the cant rail kit, again included as standard in our main trim kit. Now it's worth noting, I'm about to talk about the B-post quarter panels. One of the stars of the B-post quarter panels did away with the need for this smaller cant rail, the one that goes above here. I'll go into details on that in a second. Right, so now we're going to be talking and looking at the closing rebate panels, or door shut panels as some people call them, as well as the B-post quarter panels. Now the B-post quarter panels, it's worth noting, had 3 different versions on the fixed head 2-seater cars. You had Type 1, which is not featured in this video, which is extremely rare, normally just seen on the very early 3.8s. You had the Type 2, which is this red panel here, and you had the Type 3, which is this green panel here. The main differences between Type 2 and Type 3 is there was no hole on the Type 3s for these quarter panel pockets because they did not feature them. And then there's also an extra step. So that one there, it just has this curve here, whereas the Type 3s had this double step in it there. Easiest way is to check, obviously, what came out of your car. But failing that, we can revert to the chassis number, although it's worth noting that chassis numbers only gave an indication of how it should have left the factory, not necessarily how it did leave the factory. So just bear that in mind. Right, so the rebate panels. Rebate panels are a soft metal material, trimmed all the way around. We trim ours all the way around. You'll see, if you Google it, quite a few other suppliers out there do not trim them fully all the way around, and that leaves some of the areas exposed and on show, so just bear that in mind. Now these parts sit, the door kind of slams on them basically, so they sit kind of on the B-post pillar. Then when this gets put in the car, that's bent round like that, and so it goes up that edge there. Now what I've actually done on this green one here, you would have to bend them slightly to get them to work, but you can see it tucks in behind that element there, then this part bends up here. Now obviously that bends round, so it's very hard to do one-handed, but I'll put some photos on the website to show those. But basically it means that when the door closes, it kind of slams onto this metal piece here. So that's those bits there. Right, so yeah, the quarter panels, like I say, 3 different types, 2 of which are on show here. The Type 1 versions are the ones I referenced earlier, which were a lot shorter, so they came to about there, and they did away with the need for this lower cant rail area below the side window because it had a metal lip that was attached to the top edge here. Now the panel probably came to around there, and it had this metal lip that was trimmed around that kind of did away with the need for the cant rail. or rather it's before they realised that they should be putting a lower cant rail in. So yeah, just bear that in mind. But like I say, quite rare to see those. See my other video that details those quarter panels as well. Then that's affected obviously the way the side casings for the Type 1s had a different style side casing, which again incorporated an element of a metal panel trimmed to them for replacing the cant rail effectively. So just bear that in mind. Now obviously the Type 1 and Type 2, they had this cutaway here for the quarter panel pockets. So these are the quarter panel pockets. They're millboard, they're flocked. We sometimes trim them in wool cloth as well if you want. Originally, I believe records show that majority of them were grey. However, we can offer in grey or beige, whichever you prefer. Obviously for the Type 3s, you did not need them. It's worth noting as well that there's obviously a hole cut out there just on the right hand quarter panels, which I believe is for the rear hatch release. I think that's right. Okay, now moving on, you had the rear side casings. These are the bits that bent round and curved round into the boot trunk area of the car. Now these only had two different types. Basically you had the Type 1s, which only ever went with Type 1 quarter panels, or you had the Type 2s, which went with Type 2 quarter panel and Type 3 quarter panel. So they are exactly the same. They get piped as per original spec, around the corners, etc. It's worth bearing in mind as well, sorry, the quarter panels are piped apart from the Type 1s in different areas dependent on them. But we know what we're doing, so it's all worth it. And yeah, millboard, creased for easy bending, all the pilot holes, etc., all cut on our in-house CNC machine. So let's bear that in mind. Yeah, so same concept again for the rear side casings, piped as per original spec, pilot holes, etc. We leave these tails on intentionally. That allows you to butt the parts up that matter and overlap them, so it creates a nice seamless finish, etc. So that's all done by design and intentionally. Has the cutaways here for obviously the hinge elements of the rear hatch door. Same again with the lock mechanism cutaway there. So they are the rear side casings. Then you have the rear wheel arch covers. Now the wheel arch covers did change between the early and the late cars. The early cars were in moquette and they were this kind of one big long piece of no sewing on it, as per this red one here. So moquette, commonly used by Jaguar, very high quality material. It's a very short pile wool based item, so it basically mimics carpet but has a very short pile on it, and Jaguar used it a lot for kind of wheel arch areas, backs of seats, etc, etc. So the wheel arches on the sort of Series 1 3.8s were always just moquette, and they were quite a big fatter sort of there, and then you always got this material here for the inspection hatch in the back of the car. If I just reference the book again, we're talking about that there, so that's that piece of material there. Whereas the later cars, they switched to vinyl, and they weren't quite as deep there because they had this extra part sewn on with piping. In fact, as seen in this book here, you can see the bit of piping going down either edges there. So these are the sewn versions here. They still have the inspection hatch material there, but yeah, they were sort of piped, and that went up around that ridge section there. So again, they're included as standard in our trim kit, and had the foam paddings underneath them as well. Sorry, obviously should have mentioned that the quarter panels, rebate panels, the quarter panel pockets and the rear side casings are all included as standard in our trim kit. At the back of the car, behind the front seats, you had the lower bulkhead cover. Lower bulkhead cover, this was common between the fixed heads in terms of the shape of it, but again the material changed. Early cars had moquette, later cars had vinyl, and we supply foam as well for padding that. Just to reference where that is, and it's this section here that kind of curves round, separates. Now, as I mentioned at the very start of the video, this section here isn't included in this video, so see the other section, the other video rather, for that element. Same again with this rear luggage floor area. We're not going to talk about that apart from mentioning it just now. So that's that section there. Now, got the hinge and locks. So that's the lock element there. They're the hinges there. These are the bits. Here we are. So they're the hinges. They're the covers that cover the hinges for the rear hatch, and that's the lock element covering that there. Originally, they were just a plastic material painted to the same colour. So we can supply those, but only in a limited shade range. You've got, again, the basics. You've got kind of the black, biscuits, dark blues, reds. I think that's dark blue. Yeah, sorry, dark blue I've already mentioned. Yeah, I think that's it. Now, as standard in our trim kit, we supply pre-sewn top stitched hinge and lock covers. So they're the identical ones for the hinges there. Commonly just supplied in vinyl, but we can supply them in leather or moquette, which was used on the earlier cars. And then these are the for the lock mechanism on this side here. So again, pre-sewn cover. That goes on the inside there. So they're included as standard in the trim kit, but the actual moulded pieces themselves are optional extras as indicated by these gold rings. We've got two examples here. We've got the red moulded ones here, which are available as standard, just painted. Or you have the green ones here, which are new covers, but we've retrimmed them using our retrim kits here, so you can see the top stitching detail. You still get the chrome edgings on them as well. Nicely done. Not particularly easy to do, but you know, spend enough time on them, you'll be fine. Or you can just get us to them. Yeah, so we cover the inside front part of that, because you do see most of that, but the back part you don't really see. So they're the covers there. So again, both those elements are optional extras, so you can get just the moulded plastics, or you can get us to trim them up fully ready to go into the car. But as mentioned, the actual materials for recovering them are included as standard in our trim kit there. Now, moving to the last bits in the car, I believe. Let's just move back. We've got the kind of rear hatch panel at the back of the car and the rear cover panel. So let's start with the rear cover panel. Rear cover panel is effectively the valance panel. The back of the car, it's aluminium, has a couple of pilot holes and a little cutaway in it, and then a flap on it. That basically goes, not sure we're going to get a decent, semi-so, kind of goes down there. So it's right at the back, kind of down here, the valance sort of area of the car, effectively the other side to where the number plate would go on a fairly traditional car. So that's included as standard in the trim kit, this trimmed up aluminium piece here. Now we've got the element of the actual rear hatch. So you get the rear hatch panel, which is hardboard, trimmed all the way around apart from on this edge here. Again, that's done by design, means that when you're coming to actually trim it into the car, you get a much neater finish around there. Has all of the elements of the pilot holes cut into them, etc. That's actually the pilot hole for, I think, the Series 3 V12, but obviously it's completely very securely held in place, so don't worry about that if yours is obviously not a Series 3 V12. It's worth noting as well, and I have done another video on this, so do check that out, that there are two versions. There's a very, very, very rare version that was used pretty much only on flat floor fixed heads, and not even all of them. We do have the patterns for both. The overall shape's the same, it's just the location of the fixing holes, so bear that in mind. You also get this little panel here, which I believe, here we go. So that's that little panel there. This is the main panel here. And then this is the top panel. It's moulded plastic that goes around this section here. Now, this is the only discrepancy in this video, basically. Sorry, this section of the video. These two bits are supplied as standard in our trim kit, and we supply the material alone for retrimming your old moulded plastic piece as part of that rear door kit and the trim kit. However, if you wanted us to replace the plastic and supply it fully trimmed, ready to go into the car, then that is an optional extra, so bear that in mind, hence the gold ringlets areas. Right, then lastly, you have the rear door aperture opening retrim kit. So we're talking about, let's get a grip on that. yeah, we're actually talking about this section that's going all the way around the door here. So, as standard in our trim kit, you get enough vinyl, easily enough vinyl, to retrim that sunken section of the rear door aperture. However, we can also supply, as an optional extra, the moulded plastic for retrimming that section there. However, you do get only a select range of colours. It's sort of black, biscuits, dark blue, green in this case, and you do get a red one as well, but I think that's it. So just bear that in mind. Some people, for more bespoke colours, should we say, will end up getting this in addition to this, and then you can retrim this in that material there. So just bear that in mind. But yeah, so that's a mixture of a trim kit item and an optional extra item. Okay, right, that went on for longer than I expected, but a lot of information to get through. Tried to keep it as straightforward as possible, but please do not hesitate to ask any questions in the comments area below. Please remember to like and subscribe, check out all our other videos, and of course share it with other classic car enthusiasts out there. And yeah, I think that covers it for today. But yeah, be sure to check out other videos. Of course, check out the corresponding videos to this particular kit, where I'll be going over the items that we didn't talk about, things like the carpets, flooring, hardura, rear cubby box, headliner, and rear luggage floor area. So just check out our videos for that. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time.